In the blistering heat of the galactic frontier, where stars burned like forgotten promises and the air hummed with the distant roar of interstellar engines, Jax Harlan, a rugged human miner from the dusty outposts of Earth Colony 9, found himself knee-deep in chaos. The planet Zorathia, once a shimmering jewel of alien elegance, with its towering spires of crystalline rock and vast oceans that glowed under twin moons, was now a war zone. Invading drones from the rival empire of Dravex swarmed the skies like metallic locusts, their plasma cannons slicing through the atmosphere with ruthless precision. Jax had come here for the rare minerals buried in the planet's core, not for glory or battle. But fate, that cruel trickster of the cosmos, had other plans. He was hauling his battered drill rig through a narrow canyon when the first explosions rocked the ground. The Zorathian defenses, those elite warriors known across the galaxy for their unyielding honor and lethal grace, were holding the line, but cracks were forming. Screams echoed, alien tongues twisting in panic, and amid the dust and debris, Jax spotted her. No, not her exactly, but the child. A tiny Zorathian boy, no older than 5 in human years, with skin like polished pearl and those delicate, pointed ears that marked his species. The kid was frozen in terror, huddled behind a shattered boulder as a squadron of drones zeroed in, their red targeting lights painting him like a sacrificial lamb. Jax's heart slammed against his ribs. He wasn't a hero, hell, he was just a guy with calloused hands and a cybernetic arm from a mining accident back home. But something primal surged through him, the kind of instinct that made humans legends in the stars. Damn it, he muttered, dropping his tools. Without a second thought, he sprinted across the open ground, his boots kicking up clouds of iridescent sand. The drones whirred louder, their guns charging with that ominous whine. Plasma bolts erupted, tearing chunks from the canyon walls, scorching the air with ozone and fire. He dove, arms outstretched, tackling the child just as the barrage hit. Pain exploded across his back, searing, white-hot agony as bolts ripped into his flesh. But his hidden enhancements kicked in. The cybernetic implants from that old accident weren't just for lifting heavy loads. Nanites surged through his veins, knitting wounds in real time, hardening his skin like makeshift armor. He curled around the boy, shielding him completely, gritting his teeth as the world blurred into a haze of red and thunder. The last thing he remembered was the child's wide, luminous eyes staring up at him in awe, before darkness claimed him. When consciousness trickled back, it came in fragments, the cool touch of silk against his skin, the faint scent of exotic spices, and voices soft, melodic, yet edged with steel. Jax groaned, his body aching like he'd been run through an asteroid grinder. He forced his eyes open, expecting the sterile hum of a medbay or, worse, the cold void of death. Instead, he was in a chamber that screamed opulence and power. Walls of glowing crystal pulsed with inner light, adorned with intricate carvings of battles long past. And surrounding him, like guardians from some ancient myth, were the elite Zorathian warriors. They were a sight to behold, tall, ethereal figures with porcelain skin, hair like cascading moonlight, and those signature elfin ears that twitched with every subtle sound. Their armor was a blend of elegance and lethality, form-fitting suits of iridescent alloy that hugged their lithe, powerful forms, accented with flowing capes that shimmered like starfields. But it wasn't just any warriors. These were the Zorathian vanguard, the cream of the crop, sworn to protect their queen and realm with lives forged in honor-bound oaths. And at their center stood a woman who took his breath away. She was Lyra, though he wouldn't learn her name until later. Her white hair fell in silken waves to her waist, framing a face of otherworldly beauty, high cheekbones, eyes like swirling galaxies of violet and gold, and lips curved in a mix of curiosity and command. Her attire was regal yet revealing, a gown of translucent fabric that clung to her curvaceous figure, accentuating the graceful swell of her hips and the gentle rise of her chest, with intricate jewelry that glowed softly against her pale skin. She wasn't just a warrior, she was their leader, a princess of Zorathia, and in that moment, her gaze locked onto Jax with an intensity that made his pulse race. "You human," she said, her voice a melodic lilt that carried the weight of authority. The warriors parted slightly as she approached his bedside, her pointed ears flicking with intrigue. "You threw yourself into the maw of death for one of our young. Why? Your kind is known for greed in these frontiers, not sacrifice." Jax pushed himself up, wincing at the pull of healing wounds. his cybernetic arm whirred softly, a reminder of his augmented survival. Kid was in trouble, he rasped, his earth accent rough against her polished tones. Couldn't just stand there. Anyone would have done the same. A murmur rippled through the warrior's disbelief, perhaps admiration. In Zorathian society, honor was everything, but it was calculated, strategic. Selfless acts for strangers, unheard of. Lyra tilted her head, her violet eyes narrowing as if dissecting his soul. Not anyone. Not us. Our codes demand protection of kin, but an outsider like you, this defies logic. She reached out, her fingers long and elegant brushing his arm where the plasma scars faded. A spark jumped between them, not just from static, but something deeper, electric. The child he'd saved peeked from behind a warrior's leg, his small hand clutching a toy drone, ironic, given the circumstances. "Thank you, big saver," the boy whispered in broken common, his ears perking up. Jax managed a grin, though it hurt. "No problem, little guy." Lyra's expression softened, a rare crack in her regal facade. "You are under our protection now, human Jax, is it? The Vanguard vows it. You are blood brother to us." The term carried weight. In Zorathian lore, it meant unbreakable alliance, a bond forged in valor. The warriors nodded in unison, their hands over hearts in salute. But as Jax met Lyra's gaze, he felt a pull beyond gratitude. There was curiosity in her eyes, a flicker of something warmer, more intimate. In the stars, alliances could bloom into unexpected passions, and Jax wondered if this was the start of something that would redefine heroism not just in battle but in the heart. As the chamber's lights dimmed for his recovery, Lyra lingered, her presence a soothing balm. "Rest, blood brother. The war rages, but here, you are safe." Her hand lingered on his shoulder a moment too long, sending a thrill through him. What had begun as a desperate dive into gunfire was evolving into a tale of unlikely connection, where a miner's grit met an alien princess's grace. The drones outside hammered at the citadel's shields, but inside, a different storm brewed, one of intrigue and budding desire. Jax closed his eyes, dreaming not of minerals, but of violet eyes and the promise of alliances that went beyond oaths. Hours blurred into days as Jax adapted to life within the fortified citadel of Zorathia Prime. The warriors treated him with a mix of wariness and respect, sharing meals of glowing fruits that tasted like stardust and honey, and training sessions where he demonstrated human ingenuity rigging makeshift explosives from mining scraps that outmatched their elegant blades. But it was Lyra who captivated him most. She visited often, under the guise of strategy talks, her gowned form gliding through the halls like a vision from a fever dream. One evening, as the twin moons cast silver light through the crystal windows, she found him on a balcony overlooking the besieged landscape. "You intrigue me, Jax," she confessed, leaning close enough that he caught her scent, jasmine mixed with ozone. "In our world, warriors fight for glory. You fought for nothing, or everything." He chuckled, his rough hand brushing hers accidentally, or was it? "Humans are wired funny. We protect what's innocent, even if it costs us." Their fingers intertwined briefly, a spark igniting that neither pulled away from. The air grew thick with unspoken tension, her body heat radiating through the thin fabric of her attire. As the night deepened, their conversation turned personal. She spoke of Zorathia's rigid hierarchies, where emotions were secondary to duty. He shared tales of Earth's wild freedoms, of love that defied logic. And in that vulnerability, a bond formed, tentative, electric, hinting at passions yet unexplored. But danger loomed. Scouts reported Dravex forces massing for a final assault. Jax, now armed with Zorathian tech fused to his cybernetics, vowed to stand with them. Little did he know, this alliance would test not just his body, but his heart, in ways the galaxy had never seen. The Citadel's alarms blared as the invasion peaked, drones clashing with Vanguard ships in a symphony of destruction. Jax, side by side with Lyra, felt the adrenaline surge. Her hand squeezed his in the chaos, a promise amid the storm. In the heart of the battle, as plasma rained down, Jax's enhancements proved pivotal. He hacked a drone swarm with his mining interface, turning enemies against each other in a dazzling display of human cleverness. Lyra watched in awe, her warrior spirit stirred by his unorthodox tactics. Yet, as victory neared, a shadow fell. A Dravex commander targeted Lyra directly. Jax's protective instinct flared again, but this time, it was laced with something deeper: affection, perhaps love. The story was just beginning, a tapestry of heroism, desire, and interstellar wonder, where one man's leap into danger sparked a flame that could light the stars. As the echoes of distant explosions faded into the night, Jax found himself drawn deeper into the web of Zorathia's secrets, where every glance from Lyra felt like a silent invitation to unravel mysteries far beyond the battlefield. The Citadel, with its labyrinthine halls of shimmering crystal that seemed to breathe with the planet's own pulse, became his temporary sanctuary. Yet safety was an illusion. The Dravex forces pressed closer, their drones probing the shields like fingers testing a fragile veil. Jax could feel the tension in the air, thick and electric, mirroring the unspoken pull between him and the alien princess who had declared him blood brother. Lyra's visits grew more frequent, each one laced with a subtlety that set his nerves on edge. She would appear at odd hours, her white hair catching the moonlight as she slipped into his chamber unannounced, her gown whispering against the floor like a lover's sigh. "The War Council meets at dawn," she might say, but her eyes, those swirling violet depths, lingered on him longer than strategy required. Jax, still mending from his wounds, lay on the plush bedding that molded to his form, his cybernetic arm humming faintly as it interfaced with Zorathian tech they'd grafted onto him. It enhanced his strength, sharpened his senses, but it also amplified everything: the warmth of her proximity, the subtle curve of her body as she leaned over to check his bandages. One such night, as the twin moons aligned in a rare conjunction that bathed the room in ethereal glow, Lyra entered without a word. The door sealed behind her with a soft hiss, isolating them from the warrior's vigilant patrols. Jax sat up, his shirt discarded earlier for comfort, revealing the scarred expanse of his chest where plasma burns had healed into faint silver lines. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse, but there was a teasing edge to it, born from the growing familiarity between them. She paused at the foot of his bed, her pointed ears twitching as if catching some hidden frequency. "Sleep eludes me when the stars whisper of change," she replied, her tone a melodic caress that sent a shiver down his spine. Slowly, she approached, her gown's translucent fabric shifting with each step, hinting at the lithe contours beneath soft swells and graceful lines that spoke of a beauty sculpted by evolution on a world where elegance was survival. In Zorathian culture, such attire symbolized openness, a vulnerability offered only to those deemed worthy, and Jax felt the weight of that honor like a touch. He watched her, heart pounding in a rhythm that matched the distant thrum of the Citadel's defenses. "And what do the stars say about me?" he ventured, leaning forward just enough to close the gap slightly. The air between them crackled, charged with the suspense of what might come next. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile, enigmatic and inviting, as she sat on the edge of the bed. Her hand reached out, tracing the edge of his cybernetic arm with fingers that were cool yet ignited fire wherever they brushed. "They speak of a human who defies our codes. One who protects without pact, who risks all for the fragile. It intrigues me." The touch lingered, her nails grazing the seam where metal met flesh, sending jolts through his system. Jax's breath hitched, the enhancements made every sensation sharper, more intense, like the galaxy itself was funneling through his veins. He could smell her now, that unique blend of floral essence and the faint ozone of her world's atmosphere, and it stirred something primal in him. "Intrigue can be dangerous," he murmured, his free hand rising to capture hers, holding it gently but firmly. Her skin was impossibly smooth, like polished silk, and as their palms met, a subtle energy pulsed between them, perhaps from her alien physiology or the tech bridging their worlds. Lyra didn't pull away. Instead, she shifted closer, her thigh pressing against his through the thin sheet, the contact deliberate and teasing. "Danger is the spice of existence," she whispered, her violet eyes darkening with a hunger that mirrored his own. The room seemed to shrink around them. The outside wore a muffled roar compared to the building storm within. Jax felt the suspense coiling tight in his chest. Would she lean in? Would he? The moment stretched, erotic in its restraint, every breath a promise unspoken. She tilted her head, her white hair cascading over one shoulder, exposing the elegant curve of her neck where a faint glow emanated from her skin, a bioluminescent trait of her species that flared in moments of emotion. "Tell me, Jax, what drives a human to such acts? Is it honor or something deeper?" Her voice dropped lower, a sultry undertone that wrapped around him like velvet. As she spoke, her free hand moved to his chest, fingers splaying over the healed scars, tracing patterns that made his muscles tense beneath her touch. The gesture was intimate, exploratory, sending waves of heat radiating outward. He swallowed hard, the erotic tension thickening the air until it was almost tangible. "It's instinct," he admitted, his voice husky. "But with you it's more." Boldness surged through him, and he guided her hand lower, letting it rest just above his waist, feeling the quickening of her pulse against his skin. Lyra's ears perked, a sign of arousal in her kind, and she leaned in, her lips inches from his. The suspense was exquisite agony, the brush of her breath against his mouth, the way her body arched subtly toward him, her gown slipping slightly to reveal more of her porcelain shoulder. Outside, a sudden alert pierced the night. Dravek scouts had breached the outer perimeter. The citadel's lights flickered, casting dancing shadows that heightened the urgency. Lyra's eyes widened, but she didn't move away. If anything, the danger fueled the fire. "They come closer," she breathed, her body pressing against his now, the soft firmness of her curves molding to his side. Jax's arms encircled her waist, pulling her onto the bed fully, the sheet tangling between them like a flimsy barrier. Her hair fell around them like a curtain, and in that suspended moment, their lips met, tentative at first, then deepening into a kiss that tasted of stardust and forbidden desire. The kiss was a revelation, her lips yielding yet demanding, infused with an alien sweetness that made his head spin. Hands roamed, his over the swell of her hips, feeling the heat beneath the fabric, hers exploring the ridges of his back, nails digging in just enough to elicit a groan from him. The erotic dance built slowly, suspense woven into every touch, every gasp. She straddled him, her weight a delicious pressure, her gown riding up to expose thighs that gleamed in the moonlight. Jax's cybernetics amplified it all, turning sensations into symphonies, but it was her, Lyra, the warrior princess, who made it intoxicating, yet the alarms grew insistent, pulling at the edges of their reverie. Lyra broke the kiss, her chest heaving, eyes alight with a mix of passion and resolve. "We must prepare," she said, though her body lingered, pressing against him in ways that promised more. Jax nodded, his hands reluctant to release her, the suspense of unfinished desire hanging between them like a charged nebula. As they rose, dressing hastily, she in her armor that hugged her form like a second skin, he in the hybrid gear they'd provided, the bond between them solidified. The war waited, but this interlude had ignited something irreversible. In the corridors, warriors nodded in deference, unaware of the private flames kindled in secrecy. Jax felt invincible, his human grit fused with Zorathian grace, but the true suspense lay in what the dawn would bring: battle, betrayal, or a deeper entanglement that could shatter empires. Lyra glanced back at him as they approached the war room, her lips swollen from their kiss, a secret smile playing there. "Stay close, blood brother. The stars align for us yet." Her words carried double meaning, erotic undertones laced with the thrill of impending conflict. Jax followed, heart racing, the erotic haze blending seamlessly into the suspense of war. The War Council was a hive of activity, holographic maps flickering with Dravek's positions, warriors debating tactics in urgent tones. But Jax's focus drifted to Lyra, standing at the head, her presence commanding yet softened by the memory of her touch. As plans unfolded, a daring counterstrike at the breach, he volunteered for the front lines, his enhancements making him ideal for infiltration. She hesitated, violet eyes flashing concern, but nodded. "Then I fight beside you," she declared, her hand brushing his under the table, a hidden caress that sent sparks flying. Preparation turned frantic, arming up in the arsenal, where the air hummed with energy weapons charging. Lyra helped him adjust his suit, her fingers lingering on straps, pressing close in the dim light. "Be careful," she whispered, her body aligning with his for a stolen moment, the erotic tension rebuilding amid the suspense of danger. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling, before duty pulled them apart. As they deployed to the perimeter, the night air crackled with plasma fire. Drones swarmed, but Jax and Lyra moved as one, he with brute force, she with lethal elegance. A close call, a bolt grazed her arm, and Jax shielded her, pulling her behind cover. In the brief respite, their eyes met, bodies pressed together in the heat of battle, desire simmering beneath the adrenaline. The fight intensified, suspense mounting with each dodged strike, but their connection, forged in that chamber, gave them an edge. Lyra's warriors watched in awe as the human turned the tide, his ingenuity complementing their honor. Yet as victory teased the horizon, a larger shadow loomed, the Dravex command ship descending, promising a climax that would test everything. In the lulls between skirmishes, Lyra's touches grew bolder, a hand on his thigh during a hurried strategy huddle, her lips brushing his ear with whispered commands that carried intimate weight. The erotic undercurrent wove through the suspense, making every moment alive with possibility. Jax wondered how far this would go, but for now, he reveled in it, a human miner entangled in an alien princess's world. The breach held, but the true battle was just dawning, suspense and desire intertwining like the twin moons above. The breach erupted into pandemonium as the Dravex command ship pierced the atmosphere like a dagger from the void, its massive hull casting a shadow that swallowed the twin moons' light. Jax and Lyra burst from their cover, plasma rifles humming in their grips, the air alive with the screech of incoming fire. Drones dove in relentless waves, their red eyes locking onto targets with mechanical precision, but the pair moved like shadows, fused into one, his raw power complementing her fluid strikes. A bolt sizzled past Jax's ear, singeing his hair, and he fired back, his cybernetic arm guiding the shot to vaporize a drone mid-dive. Lyra spun beside him, her blade extending from her gauntlet in a blur of silver, slicing through another assailant with the grace of a dancer in a deadly ballet. "They're funneling us toward the canyon," Jax shouted over the din, his voice cutting through the chaos as he grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a crumbling Zorathian pillar, her body pressed against his in the tight space, chests heaving in sync, the heat of battle mingling with the lingering fire from their earlier intimacy. She nodded, her violet eyes fierce yet alight with that curious spark he'd come to crave, the one that questioned everything about him, a human who turned logic on its head. "Then we turn the trap on them," she replied, her pointed ears flattening against her head as another explosion rocked the ground. Her hand lingered on his chest for a fraction too long, a silent affirmation amid the storm, before they charged forward again. The vanguard warriors fanned out around them, their ethereal forms a whirlwind of motion, capes billowing like comet tails as they engaged the enemy. But the command ship's descent brought a new horror, ground troops deploying in droves, hulking Dravex soldiers clad in jagged armor that absorbed light, their weapons pulsing with dark energy. Jax's enhancement scanned the field, overlaying holographic data on his vision, enemy counts climbing, shields failing. Thrilling adrenaline surged through him, this was no mere skirmish, but the climax of Zorathia's stand, where one wrong move could doom them all. He glanced at Lyra, her white hair whipping in the wind, and felt a dramatic swell in his chest, not just for the fight, but for her, this alien enigma who'd woven herself into his soul. As they pushed deeper into the fray, curiosity gnawed at Jax. Why had the Dravex targeted this planet so viciously? Whispers among the warriors hinted at ancient artifacts buried in the core relics that could bend reality itself. But there was no time for questions. A squad of Dravex elites dropped from the ship, their leader a towering brute with biomechanical tentacles writhing from its back. "For the Empress!" The creature bellowed in a guttural roar, charging straight for Lyra. She met it head-on, her sword clashing against its energy whip in sparks that lit the night like fireworks. Jax flanked, his rifle barking shots that chipped at its armor, but the beast was relentless, its tentacles lashing out to ensnare her. In a thrilling blur, Jax leaped between them, his cybernetics overclocking to boost his speed. He tackled the leader, rolling across the scorched earth in a tangle of limbs and fury. Pain flared as a tentacle wrapped around his leg, squeezing with bone-crushing force, but he jammed his arm's drill interface into the creature's side, hacking its systems mid-fight. The Dravex howled, systems fritzing, and Lyra seized the moment, driving her blade through its core. It collapsed in a heap of sparking wreckage, but not before its dying gasp unleashed a surprising pulse wave that knocked them both off their feet. They tumbled into a shallow crater, bodies entwined in the dust, breaths ragged. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just them, her curves pressed against him, her violet eyes wide with surprise at his recklessness. "You fool," she whispered. But there was no anger, only a dramatic intensity that made his blood sing. Her lips brushed his in a fierce, stolen kiss amid the gunfire, a climax of emotion in the eye of the storm. But curiosity pulled at the edges as they rose. Jax noticed a glowing amulet tumbling from the fallen leader's grasp, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. "What is that?" he asked, scooping it up. Lyra's eyes widened in recognition, her pointed ears perking straight. "The key of Aurali is an artifact our ancestors hid. It controls the planet's core defenses." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. The Dravex weren't just invaders, they sought godlike power. Thrilling possibilities raced through Jax's mind with this. They could turn the tide, but at what cost? Surprising even himself, he activated it with his cybernetics, interfacing seamlessly as if fate had designed him for this moment. The ground trembled as ancient mechanisms awoke, crystalline spires rising from the canyons like awakened giants. Beams of pure energy lanced skyward, shredding drone swarms in spectacular bursts. The vanguard cheered, their voices a chorus of triumph, but the command ship retaliated, its main cannon charging with an ominous hum that vibrated through their bones. "It's targeting the citadel?" Lyra cried, grabbing his hand. They sprinted toward the front lines, the artifact warm in his palm, its power curious and untamed whispers in his mind hinting at secrets buried deeper than minerals. Dramatic tension built as the ship's cannon fired, a beam of annihilation streaking toward home. Jax thrust the key forward, channeling its energy through his enhancements in a desperate bid. A shield dome erupted, deflecting the blast in an explosion that lit the horizon like a new sun. Warriors gasped in awe. Humans weren't just survivors, they were catalysts, turning impossible odds into legend. But surprise struck hard. The deflection backfired, cracking the command ship's hull, yet revealing a hidden chamber within rows of captive Zorathians, including what looked like royalty. Lyra froze, her grip tightening on his arm. "My sister Nara, they have her." The name hung heavy, a thrilling twist that personalized the war. Curiosity burned within her. What leverage did the Dravex hold? Jax felt the dramatic weight of it all, his heart pounding as they led a vanguard charge toward the crashing ship. Plasma fire rained down, but they dodged and weaved, his ingenuity rigging drone wreckage into improvised shields. Inside the wreckage, the air was thick with smoke and sparks, corridors twisting like a labyrinth. Thrilling pursuits ensued, Dravex guards ambushing from shadows, tentacles and lasers clashing against Zorathian blades. Jax and Lyra fought back to back, her movements a poetic counterpoint to his brute force. A surprising trap sprung, holographic decoys mimicking Nara, leading them into a chamber where the true commander awaited, a sleek, insidious figure with eyes like black voids. "You meddle in forces beyond your primitive grasp, human," it sneered, activating a device that warped gravity, pinning them to the walls. Dramatic struggle ensued. Jax's cybernetics strained against the pull, nanites working overtime. Lyra's bioluminescence flared, her skin glowing brighter as she channeled inner strength, inching toward the key still clutched in his hand. Curiosity piqued. What was this commander's endgame? "The key isn't just a weapon," it revealed with a chilling laugh. "It's a gateway to realms where species like yours become playthings." In a thrilling surge, Jax overrode the gravity field with a burst from his arm, freeing them. Lyra lunged, disarming the commander in a flurry of strikes, but not before it triggered a self-destruct. Alarms blared, the ship shuddering toward collapse. They found Nara in a stasis pod, her features mirroring Lyra's, white hair and elegant form, but weakened, her eyes fluttering open in surprise. "Sister and a human?" she murmured, voice faint yet curious. No time for reunions, they fled, Jax carrying Nara over his shoulder as corridors buckled. Explosions chased them, thrilling escapes through venting flames and collapsing bulkheads. Outside, the vanguard covered their retreat, the command ship erupting in a fireball that painted the sky in fiery hues. As they reached safety, the dramatic climax crested. Zorathia's defenses, empowered by the key, repelled the remaining invaders, drones fleeing into the void. But surprise lingered in the aftermath. Nara, recovering in Lyra's arms, whispered a secret that sent chills through Jax. "The Dravex, they're not conquerors, they're fleeing something worse. A darkness from the outer rims." Curiosity ignited anew. What horror could scare even them? Lyra met Jax's gaze, her hand finding his, the bond unbreakable now. The war's peak had passed, but thrilling unknowns loomed, drawing them deeper into a galaxy of wonders and perils. Exhaustion claimed them as dawn broke, but in the quiet, Jax felt the pull of destiny. Humans protected the innocent, yes, but here, he'd sparked alliances that could reshape stars. Lyra leaned against him, her body warm and inviting, hinting at passions yet to explore amid the ruins. The artifact hummed softly in his pocket, A curious promise of more to come, surprising twists waiting in the shadows of victory. As the first rays of Zorathia's dual suns pierced the horizon, casting a golden haze over the smoldering wreckage of the Dravex command ship, Jax stood amidst the vanguard warriors, the key of Aureli's still thrumming in his pocket like a heartbeat from another dimension. The air was thick with the acrid scent of scorched metal and victory, but the revelation from Nara hung over them like a storm cloud ready to burst. Lyra held her sister close, Nara's frail form leaning against her, white hair matted with stasis fluid and eyes mirroring Lyra's violet swirl but dulled by captivity darting around in wary confusion. A darkness from the outer rims, Nara had whispered again, her voice gaining strength as medics administered glowing serums that knit her wounds with ethereal light. Jax felt the drama escalating, a knot tightening in his gut. What could terrify the ruthless Dravex enough to drive them into desperate conquests? The artifact's whispers in his mind grew insistent, fragments of ancient warnings that teased at horrors beyond stars. Lyra turned to him, her hand slipping from Nara's shoulder to grasp his, a gesture that grounded him amid the rising tension. "We must return to the Citadel at once," she said, her tone laced with the weight of command, yet softened by the intimacy they'd shared. The vanguard formed a protective phalanx around them, their elegant armors dented but unbowed, as they boarded a sleek hover transport. Jax climbed in beside the sisters, the vehicle humming to life with a low vibration that mirrored his unease. Nara's gaze fixed on him curiously, her pointed ears twitching as she studied the human who'd upended the battle. "You're the one who saved me indirectly," she murmured, tilting her head in that alien way that made her seem both vulnerable and inscrutable. A miner with the touch of a god, how peculiar. Jax chuckled awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck where his cybernetics itched from overuse. "Peculiar's my middle name. Jax Peculiar Harlan. Glad you're okay though. Your sister's the real hero here." He shot Lyra a wink, trying to lighten the mood, but the drama heightened as Nara's eyes narrowed, flicking between them with a spark of realization. The transport lurched forward, skimming over craters and debris, and in the confined space, the air grew charged not just with the artifact's energy, but with an unspoken undercurrent. Nara leaned closer to Lyra, whispering in their melodic native tongue, words that made Lyra's cheeks flush a faint luminescent blue, a Zorathian blush Jax had come to recognize from their stolen moments. "What was that about?" Jax asked, his voice casual but curiosity piqued, as the transport banked sharply to avoid a lingering drone husk. Nara turned to him with a sly smile, her gowned form similar to Lyra's but torn and makeshift shifting to reveal the graceful curves that marked Zorathian royalty. "I was merely inquiring about the bond you share with my sister. In our culture, declaring someone blood brother is sacred, but the way she looks at you suggests more than oaths." Lyra stiffened beside him, her hand tightening on his thigh under the console, an awkward squeeze that sent a jolt through him. Drama simmered, was this jealousy or something else? Jax felt heat creep up his neck, caught in the crossfire of sibling dynamics he hadn't signed up for. Well, it's complicated. Wars have a way of speeding things up," he stammered, adding a humorous lilt to diffuse the tension. "Back on Earth, we'd call it battlefield romance, you know, like dodging lasers and falling for the girl with the killer sword skills." Nara laughed, a tinkling sound that cut through the hum of the engines, her ears perking in amusement. Humans and their quaint terms. On Zorathia, such complications require council approval, especially for royalty. She eyed Lyra teasingly, heightening the awkwardness as the transport hit a turbulence pocket, jostling them together. Jax's arm brushed against Nara's side accidentally, and she didn't pull away immediately, her skin cool and electric like Lyra's. "Careful savior," she purred with mock innocence, "or I might declare you my blood brother too. Wouldn't that make family gatherings interesting?" Lyra shot her a glare, but there was humor in it, a sisterly banter that eased the drama just enough to breathe. Jax grinned, playing along. "Hey, if it means double the protection from tentacle monsters, sign me up. But let's not get ahead, I've got enough alien drama for one lifetime." The transport docked at the Citadel with a graceful thud, gates parting to reveal warriors cheering their return. But as they disembarked, the drama escalated anew. Scouts reported residual Dravex signals flickering in the outer canyons, suggesting not all invaders had fled. Worse, the key in Jax's pocket grew warmer, its whispers turning to urgent murmurs that only he could hear, visions of void-born entities, shapeless horrors devouring worlds. He confided in Lyra as they hurried through the crystal halls, Nara trailing with a vanguard escort. "This thing's talking to me," he admitted, pulling out the artifact, its surface swirling with runes that danced like living ink. Lyra's eyes widened, her hand covering his in a protective grasp. "It bonds with users of strong will. But if it's warning of this darkness, we must consult the archives." In the grand archive chamber, a vault of holographic tomes and ancient relics suspended in anti-grav fields, the awkwardness peaked in a way Jax hadn't anticipated. Nara, regaining her strength with each step, insisted on joining them, her presence turning the intimate consultation into a trio dynamic that felt oddly charged. As Lyra activated a central orb, projecting star maps riddled with ominous voids, Nara positioned herself between them, her body language playful yet probing. "Let me see," she said, leaning over Jax to point at a flickering anomaly, her white hair brushing his face and carrying that same jasmine ozone scent. The contact was innocent enough, but in the heightened drama of impending doom, it sparked a comedic mishap. Jax, distracted, bumped the orb's controls, sending the projection into a chaotic spin, stars whirling like a drunken galaxy. "Whoa, easy there," Jax yelped, fumbling to stabilize it, his cybernetic arm whirring comically as holograms clipped through their bodies. Lyra stifled a laugh, her violet eyes sparkling. Humans and technology always a spectacle. Nara joined in, her laughter genuine, but the moment underscored the awkward triangle: two sisters, one human, bound by fate in a room pulsing with secrets. As the map settled, revealing a rift in the outer rims where light itself bent unnaturally, the drama intensified. "The Void Eaters," Nara breathed, her humor fading into grave intensity. "Legends say they consume essences, leaving husks of worlds. The Dravex must have disturbed their slumber." Jax felt the weight crush down, but he injected humor to keep spirits up. "Great, so now we're dealing with cosmic vampires. What's next, space werewolves?" The quip earned chuckles, but the awkward truth lingered with the key attuned to him. Jax was the linchpin, a human minor thrust into galactic savior status. Lyra pulled him aside amid the glowing tomes, her body close in a way that reignited their earlier fire. "You handle this with such levity," she murmured, her fingers tracing his jaw. But Nara interrupted, calling out a discovery: a hidden protocol in the archives, requiring a unity ritual to fully activate the key. "It demands a bond of 3 guardian, wielder and witness," she read, her tone dripping with implication. The awkwardness hit like a plasma bolt. Jax blinked, caught between the sisters. "Wait, a ritual? Like what, holding hands and chanting?" Nara's smile turned mischievous. "More intimate than that. Involves shared essence, emotional, physical." Lyra's blush returned, deeper this time, heightening the drama as the room's lights dimmed for emphasis. Jax swallowed, humor his shield. "Well, if it's for saving the galaxy, I guess I can manage. But no funny business with the pointed ears, those tickle." The jest broke the tension, drawing laughter that echoed through the chamber, but beneath it, desire and duty intertwined, promising more entanglements. As they prepared for the ritual in a secluded antechamber, adorned with bioluminescent vines that pulsed like veins, the drama built to a fever pitch. Scouts burst in with urgent news: Dravex remnants were rallying, augmented by strange, shadowy allies that defied sensors, early signs of the Void Eater's influence. "They're coming for the key," the lead warrior reported, bowing low. Jax gripped the artifact, feeling its power surge in response to his touch, but the awkward ritual loomed, a humorous twist in the cosmic play. Nara arranged crystals in a triangle formation, her movements graceful yet teasing as she positioned Jax at the center. "Relax, human. It's not as invasive as you fear. Or hope." She winked, adding levity to the escalating stakes. Lyra took his hands, her gaze intense, while Nara completed the circle, their energies linking in a warm glow. The ritual began with chants that vibrated through their bodies, awkward at first, Jax mumbling alien words like a tourist butchering a menu, but soon flowing into harmony. Drama heightened as visions assaulted them, glimpses of the Void Eaters, amorphous tendrils devouring stars, the Drivex's desperate flight. Yet humor peeked through when Jax's cybernetics glitched mid-chant, emitting a cartoonish beep that made the sisters giggle. "Even your machines have a sense of timing," Lyra teased, her curves pressing closer in the energy field. The bond solidified, the key awakening fully, granting Jax visions of countermeasures human ingenuity fused with Zorathian lore. But as the ritual peaked, an awkward surprise. Nara's hand lingered on his back, her touch sparking a shared empathy that revealed her own budding curiosity toward him. Interesting, she murmured, eyes meeting Lyra's in silent accord. The drama of potential rivalry or alliance added layers, but Jax focused on the threat, humor keeping him sane. All right, galaxy-saving team assembled. Let's hope this doesn't end with me as space bait. With the Citadel's alarms blaring anew, they emerged united, the key now a beacon in Jax's grasp. Warriors rallied, but the awkward undercurrents between the trio promised personal dramas amid the galactic storm. As shadows lengthened, Jax wondered if saving worlds meant navigating hearts too, a thrilling, humorous mess in the stars. The outer rim's darkness crept closer, but with Lyra and Nara at his sides, Jax felt ready, the blend of drama, awkwardness, and levity forging an unbreakable front. As the ritual's glow faded from the antechamber, leaving a soft, lingering warmth in the air that mirrored the newfound unity among them, Jax, Lyra, and Nara emerged into the Citadel's bustling corridors with a shared resolve that pulsed like a living current. The key of Aureli's, now fully attuned to Jax's cybernetic essence, hummed contentedly in his grasp, its runes settling into a steady rhythm that promised power against the encroaching shadows from the outer rims. Warriors nodded in deference as they passed, unaware of the intimate bond forged moments ago, the emotional threads that wove the trio together in ways that transcended mere alliance. Lyra walked close to Jax's left, her hand brushing his occasionally, a subtle reminder of their private flames, while Nara flanked his right, her steps light and teasing, injecting a spark of curiosity into the group's dynamic. The drama of the Void Eaters loomed large, but in this brief respite, personal connections demanded attention, drawing them toward a private sanctum where they could process the ritual's aftereffects. The culmination came softly, a crescendo of shared release that left them breathless, bodies entwined in a warm afterglow. Lyra rested her head on his chest, her white hair fanning out like a halo, while Nara curled against his side, her hand interlaced with her sister's across him. The ritual's energy settled into a peaceful hum, reinforcing their unity without words. Jax held them both, marveling at the path that had led a simple miner to this entangled in the arms of two alien royals, their hearts beating in sync. Yet, even in this intimate repose, hints of the larger drama stirred. The key in his nearby gear pouch vibrated faintly, a reminder of the shadows approaching. As they lay there, recovering in the soft light, conversation drifted back to the threats ahead, but laced with the tenderness of their bond. "This changes everything," Lyra murmured, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his skin. Nara nodded, her voice sleepy yet content. "For the better, we're stronger together." Jax agreed silently, his mind wandering to how this personal alliance could fuel their fight against the Void Eaters. The awkwardness from before had transformed into comfortable familiarity, humor peeking through as he quipped, "Who knew galaxy saving involved such team building?" They shared a quiet laugh, the sound echoing warmly in the chamber. But rest was fleeting. A soft chime from the door signaled an incoming message from the War Council. Dravex stragglers were probing the defenses again, augmented by eerie anomalies that matched Nara's warnings. Lyra rose first, her gown readjusted with graceful efficiency, though her eyes lingered on Jax with a promise of more moments like this. Nara followed, pressing a light kiss to his cheek before standing, her form radiant in the afterglow. Jax dressed alongside them, the intimacy fresh in his veins, fueling a renewed determination. As they exited the sanctum, stepping back into the Citadel's flow, the bond between them felt unbreakable, a secret weapon against the encroaching dark. The corridors bustled with preparations, warriors arming for the next skirmish, but Jax, Lyra, and Nara moved as a unit, their shared experience lending them an aura of quiet power. Scouts reported sightings of shadowy tendrils at the planet's edge, early manifestations of the Void Eaters, twisting reality in subtle ways. The drama heightened once more, but now infused with the strength of their connection. In the war room, holographic displays flickered with urgent data, and Jax interfaced the key directly, its power surging through him like an extension of the intimacy they'd just shared, warm, potent, and alive. Plans unfolded rapidly, a preemptive strike on the rift's coordinates, using the key to seal it before the horrors fully emerged. Lyra coordinated the vanguard, her commands sharp and inspiring, while Nara, drawing on her captivity knowledge, pinpointed weaknesses in the Dravex remnants. Jax contributed his human perspective unconventional tactics that blended mining ingenuity with the artifact's might, like rigging planetary drills to amplify energy beams. The trio's synergy was palpable, their touches lingering in subtle ways amid the strategy, a reminder of the deeper ties binding them. As night fell again, with the twin moons rising, they geared up for deployment. The intimacy had not only deepened their alliance but sharpened their focus, turning potential rivals into harmonious partners. Jax felt invincible, the afterglow of their union fueling his resolve. Yet, as they boarded the lead ship, a curious anomaly appeared on sensors, a Dravex envoy signaling for parley, bearing a message that could upend everything. The drama swirled anew, but with Lyra and Nara by his side, Jax embraced it, ready for whatever passions or perils the stars held. The culmination came softly, a crescendo of shared release that left them breathless, bodies entwined in a warm afterglow. Lyra rested her head on his chest, her white hair fanning out like a halo, while Nara curled against his side, her hand interlaced with her sister's across him. The ritual's energy settled into a peaceful hum, reinforcing their unity without words. Jax held them both, marveling at the path that had led a simple miner to this, entangled in the arms of two alien royals, their hearts beating in sync. Yet, even in this intimate repose, hints of the larger drama stirred. The key in his nearby gear pouch vibrated faintly, a reminder of the shadows approaching. As they lay there, recovering in the soft light, conversation drifted back to the threats ahead, but laced with the tenderness of their bond. "This changes everything," Lyra murmured, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his skin. Nara nodded, her voice sleepy yet content. "For the better. We're stronger together." Jax agreed silently, his mind wandering to how this personal alliance could fuel their fight against the Void Eaters. The awkwardness from before had transformed into comfortable familiarity, humor peeking through as he quipped, "Who knew galaxy saving involved such team building?" They shared a quiet laugh, the sound echoing warmly in the chamber. But rest was fleeting. A soft chime from the door signaled an incoming message from the War Council. Dravex stragglers were probing the defenses again, augmented by eerie anomalies that matched Nara's warnings. Lyra rose first, her gown readjusted with graceful efficiency, though her eyes lingered on Jax with a promise of more moments like this. Nara followed, pressing a light kiss to his cheek before standing, her form radiant in the afterglow. Jax dressed alongside them, the intimacy fresh in his veins, fueling a renewed determination. As they exited the sanctum, stepping back into the citadel's flow, the bond between them felt unbreakable, a secret weapon against the encroaching dark. The corridors bustled with preparations, warriors arming for the next skirmish, but Jax, Lyra, and Nara moved as a unit, their shared experience lending them an aura of quiet power. Scouts reported sightings of shadowy tendrils at the planet's edge, early manifestations of the Void Eaters, twisting reality in subtle ways. The drama heightened once more, but now infused with the strength of their connection. In the war room, holographic displays flickered with urgent data, and Jax interfaced the key directly, its power surging through him like an extension of the intimacy they just shared, warm, potent, and alive. Plans unfolded rapidly, a preemptive strike on the rift's coordinates, using the key to seal it before the horrors fully emerged. Lyra coordinated the vanguard, her commands sharp and inspiring, while Nara, drawing on her captivity knowledge, pinpointed weaknesses in the Dravex remnants. Jax contributed his human perspective unconventional tactics that blended mining ingenuity with the artifact's might, like rigging planetary drills to amplify energy beams. The trio's synergy was palpable, their touches lingering in subtle ways amid the strategy, a reminder of the deeper ties binding them. As night fell again, with the twin moons rising, they geared up for deployment. The intimacy had not only deepened their alliance but sharpened their focus, turning potential rivals into harmonious partners. Jax felt invincible, the afterglow of their union fueling his resolve. Yet, as they boarded the lead ship, a curious anomaly appeared on sensors, a Dravex envoy signaling for parley, bearing a message that could upend everything. The drama swirled anew, but with Lyra and Nara by his side, Jax embraced it, ready for whatever passions or perils the stars held. In the ship's dim cabin during transit, they stole a moment of quiet, hands clasped in a circle that echoed the ritual. The bond pulsed between them, intimate and unbreakable, a beacon against the void. As the ship's engines thrummed with a steady growl, propelling them toward the coordinates of the Dravex envoy's signal, Jax sat in the dim cabin with Lyra and Nara, their hands still clasped in that lingering circle from their stolen moment of quiet reflection. The warmth of their touch lingered like an echo of the intimacy they'd shared, a subtle current that bound them even as the vessel cut through Zorathia's turbulent atmosphere. Outside the viewport, the planet's crystalline landscapes blurred into streaks of light, but inside, the air felt charged with anticipation not just for the parley ahead, but for the unbreakable thread now weaving their fates together. Lyra's fingers intertwined with his a bit tighter, her violet eyes reflecting the holographic displays flickering with incoming data, while Nara leaned her head against his shoulder, her white hair spilling softly like a cascade of moonlight. "Whatever this envoy brings," Jax said softly, breaking the comfortable silence, "we face it as one. No more surprises from the stars at least, none we can't handle." Nara lifted her head, her pointed ears perking with a mix of resolve and that playful curiosity that had lightened so many tense moments. "The Dravex don't parley lightly. This could be a ploy, or perhaps desperation from the Void Eater's advance." Her voice carried the weight of her captivity, but also the renewed strength from their bond, her body shifting closer in a way that reminded Jax of the Sanctum's tenderness. Lyra nodded, her elegant gown rustling faintly as she adjusted her posture, the fabric clinging to her curves in the ship's subtle vibrations. "We'll listen, but with weapons ready. The key will guide us." Jax felt the artifact in his pocket respond, a gentle pulse syncing with his cybernetics, as if affirming her words. The parley site loomed on the sensors, a neutral crater basin, scarred from earlier battles, where the envoy's shuttle waited like a silent sentinel. The ship touched down with a graceful sigh, dust swirling in ethereal patterns under the landing thrusters. The trio disembarked, flanked by a small vanguard contingent, their armors gleaming under the dual suns. Jax walked between the sisters, his hybrid gear feeling like an extension of himself now, enhanced by the ritual's lingering energy. The Dravex envoy emerged from their shuttle a solitary figure, not the hulking brute he'd expected, but a slender being cloaked in flowing robes that shimmered with adaptive camouflage, its face hidden behind a translucent visor. Tentacles peeked from the sleeves, but they moved with deliberate calm, not aggression. "We come under truce," the envoy intoned in a synthesized voice that echoed through translators, raising a appendage in a universal gesture of peace. The vanguard tensed, blades half-drawn, but Lyra raised a hand to hold them steady. "Speak your purpose," she commanded, her regal bearing unbroken, though Jax caught the subtle flicker of her ears, a sign of wariness. The envoy inclined its head, visor retracting to reveal a surprisingly humanoid face pale, with elongated features and eyes like polished obsidian. "The Void Eaters consume all in their path. We fled them, seeking relics like your key to seal the rifts. But we are not your true enemy." Jax felt a stir in the artifact, its whispers intensifying, urging him to listen. Nara stepped forward slightly, her form poised and alluring even in the tension, her gown's translucent edges catching the light. "Then why invade? Why take me captive?" The envoy's gaze shifted to her, a hint of regret in its alien expression. "To draw out the key's guardian. We knew of the prophecy one not of Zorathia, but from the ancient seeds." The words hung heavy, and Jax's cybernetics buzzed with an odd resonance, as if the envoy's voice triggered something buried deep. As the parley unfolded under the watchful eyes of both sides, the envoy produced a holographic projector, casting images into the air-swirling voids where stars vanished, tendrils of shadow-devouring fleets. "The Eaters were not born of the outer rims," it continued, its tone grave. "They were unleashed by an experiment gone awry, a fusion of technologies from eons past." Lyra's hand found Jax's again, squeezing for reassurance, her body heat a comforting anchor amid the revelations. But then the hologram shifted, displaying schematics that made Jax's blood run cold, diagrams of cybernetic enhancements, eerily similar to his own arm, intertwined with Zorathian crystals and Dravex biotech. "The origin traces back to a lost colony," the envoy said, zooming in on a symbol, a stylized Earth emblem, faded but unmistakable. Jax stared, his mind reeling. The whispers from the key grew louder, piecing together fragments he'd long ignored. "What colony?" he demanded, his voice rougher than intended, stepping forward as the vanguard murmured in confusion. Nara's eyes widened, her elegant frame tensing beside him, while Lyra's grip turned vise-like. The envoy met his gaze directly. "Yours, human. Or rather, the one your ancestors fled. The Void Eaters, they are the remnants of humanity's first foray into the stars, a failed ascension project. Your kind sought immortality through merging with the Void, but it backfired, birthing these entities that hunger for essence." The words landed like a supernova, a powerful twist that shattered Jax's world. He wasn't just a miner from Earth Colony 9, his cybernetics, from that accident years ago, weren't random, they were a legacy, a dormant link to this ancient catastrophe. The key surged in his pocket, flooding his mind with visions, human scientists on a distant world, experimenting with rifts, unleashing shadows that consumed them, scattering survivors across the galaxy including his bloodline. Surprise gripped him, his heart pounding as memories resurfaced, flashes from childhood dreams he'd dismissed as nightmares, void tendrils reaching for him, a voice whispering of return. Lyra gasped, her violet eyes searching his face. "Jax, is this true?" Nara pulled him into a protective embrace, her curves pressing against him in a bid for comfort, but the shock rippled through their bond like a quake. The envoy nodded solemnly. "Your enhancements are the key to controlling them. Not destroy command." The Eaters recognized their own. The vanguard shifted uneasily, blades fully drawn now, but Jax held up a hand, his cybernetic arm glowing with newfound energy. The twist deepened, he wasn't an outsider hero, he was the inadvertent heir to the galaxy's greatest horror, a human whose ingenuity had birthed monsters, now turned savior. Drama exploded in the crater as Dravex reinforcements shimmered into view, cloaked ships decloaking overhead not as attackers, but allies, their fleets battered from fleeing the Eaters. "We offer alliance," the envoy pressed. "With you, we can seal the rifts from within." Jax felt the weight crush down, but the bond with Lyra and Nara anchored him. Lyra turned to him, her white hair framing a face etched with surprise yet unwavering support. "If this is your legacy, then we rewrite it together." Nara nodded, her hand on his chest, feeling the rapid beat. "You're not their creation, you're ours now." The intimacy of their connection surged, turning shock into resolve, but the surprise lingered, reshaping everything. Hefwe wasn't just about human grit, it was about facing the shadows we'd cast ourselves. As the alliance tentatively formed, Jax interfaced the key with his cybernetics fully, unlocking protocols that revealed hidden abilities, void manipulation, essence shielding. But the twist's power lay in its personal sting, a message embedded in the visions, from his ancient forebears. "We sought eternity but found hunger. Redeem us." Tears pricked his eyes, emotion raw amid the strategic huddles that followed. Lyra and Nara stayed close, their bodies a soothing presence, whispering encouragements that blended affection with strategy. The Dravex shared data on rift locations, their tentacles gesturing animatedly, while Vanguard warriors adapted, forging uneasy truces. In a quiet aside aboard the returning ship, the trio processed the revelation. Jax sat between them, the cabin's hum a backdrop to his turmoil. "All this time I thought I was just me. A guy digging rocks." Lyra kissed his temple, her lips soft and reassuring. "You are, and more. That's what makes humans extraordinary, you turn curses into strengths." Nara traced his arm seams, her touch igniting familiar sparks. "The Eaters may be your shadow, but we're your light." The bond pulsed, intimate even in crisis, their closeness a balm against the surprise's sting. Plans evolved rapidly, a joint assault on the nearest rift, using Jax as the conduit to command and seal. But doubts crept in, could he control what his ancestors unleashed? The twist had surprised not just him, but the galaxy's balance, forcing enemies into allies. As Zorathia Prime came into view, Jax felt transformed, the miner's grit now laced with cosmic responsibility. Yet with Lyra and Nara's unwavering presence, their elegant forms a constant reminder of love amid chaos, he embraced it. The ship docked, Citadel gates opening to cheers mixed with wary glances at the Dravex shuttles following. In the war room, holograms bloomed with rift schematics, Jax at the center, the key projecting void simulations. Surprise aftershocks hit. A Dravex tech revealed that Nara's captivity had inadvertently awakened latent void resistance in her, making her a vital amplifier. We three are the triad, she realized, eyes wide. Lyra smiled, pulling them into a huddle. Then let's surprise the Eaters back. Preparations intensified fusing technologies, training in void simulations where Jax's commands bent shadows like clay. Emotion ran high in stolen moments, their intimacy deepened, bodies and souls aligning against the unknown. The twist had upended everything, but in its wake, hope bloomed, a human's folly redeemed by love and alliance. As launch hour neared, Jax stood on the balcony, Lyra and Nara beside him, watching stars that now held personal secrets. The powerful revelation had taken him by surprise, but it forged him anew, ready to confront the darkness within. As the launch hour ticked closer, Jax lingered on the balcony a moment longer, the cool Zorathian breeze carrying whispers of the stars that now felt like accusatory eyes staring back at him, secrets of his ancestors' folly etched into the cosmos. Lyra and Nara stood sentinel at his sides, their elegant presences a dual anchor in the swirling drama of revelations, their white hair fluttering like banners of solidarity. The citadel below buzzed with final preparations, vanguard warriors fusing Drivek's tech to their blades, ships humming to life in the hangars, and the key in Jax's grasp, pulsing with an urgency that mirrored his racing thoughts. We should head to the command deck, Lyra suggested, her voice steady but laced with the undercurrent of surprise that still shadowed her violet eyes from the envoy's bombshell. She slipped her hand into his, a gesture both comforting and possessive, while Nara mirrored it on his other side, creating a triad that felt unbreakable yet newly fragile under the weight of his hidden heritage. They descended the spiraling crystal stairs together, the architecture of the citadel seeming to shift subtly in response to the key's energy, as if the planet itself sensed the escalating drama. Warriors saluted as they passed, but Jax caught the awkward sidelong glances. Word of the alliance with the Dravex had spread like plasma fire, and now whispers of his void blood added fuel to the unease. One young guard, ears twitching nervously, nearly dropped his weapon when Jax met his gaze. "Easy there," Jax quipped with a grin, trying to inject humor into the tension. "I'm not about to sprout tentacles yet." The guard stammered an apology, flushing blue, and Nara stifled a laugh, her curvaceous form leaning into Jax's arm. "See, even heroes have their comedic timing," she teased, but her tone carried a hint of awkward concern, as if testing the waters of this new reality where her human savior was tied to the very monsters they fought. The command deck was a hive of controlled chaos, holographic displays swirling with rift coordinates and void simulations that twisted like living nightmares. Dravex representatives, tentacled figures in adaptive robes, huddled with Zorathian tacticians, their synthesized voices clashing with the melodic alien tones in a symphony of uneasy cooperation. Jax, Lyra, and Nara took their places at the central console, the key interfacing seamlessly with the systems, projecting a map that heightened the drama. The nearest rift yawned like a maw, shadowy tendrils already probing Zorathia's outer orbits. "If we don't seal it now," a Dravex commander intoned, its visor flickering, "the Eaters will consume this world as they did our outposts." Lyra nodded gravely, her hand resting on Jax's shoulder, but the awkwardness peaked when the commander turned its obsidian eyes on him. The air your command essence is key. But can you control what birthed you?" Jax felt the room's focus shift, a dramatic spotlight that made his skin crawl. Sweat beaded on his brow despite the cool air, his cybernetics whirring louder as if protesting the scrutiny. "Air? Sounds fancy for a guy who used to dig dirt for a living," he joked, forcing a laugh that echoed hollowly. Nara squeezed his hand under the console, her fingers intertwining with a warmth that grounded him, but the humor fell flat amid the stares, Zorathians exchanging puzzled looks, Dravex tentacles twitching in what might have been amusement or disdain. Lyra stepped in smoothly, her regal poise cutting through the tension. "Jax has proven his worth beyond bloodlines. We trust him as should you." Her words carried command, but Jax caught the subtle awkward flicker in her ears, a sign she was navigating her own surprise at defending a man whose ancestors had unleashed galactic horrors. As briefings intensified, mapping entry points into the rift, where Jax would channel the key to command and seal the void, an awkward situation unfolded in the most unexpected way. A simulation glitch triggered by the fusion of human, Zorathian, and Dravex tech projected holographic avatars of the team into a mock void scenario. Jax's avatar appeared first, rugged and enhanced, but then Lyra's and Nara's materialized beside him, their forms rendered with uncanny accuracy, gowns flowing ethereally. The drama heightened when the sim escalated to a bond stress test, forcing the avatars into close-quarters combat drills that mimicked intimate entanglements, arms wrapping, bodies pressing in evasive maneuvers. The room fell silent as the holograms tangled in a way that echoed their private sanctum moments, Jax's avatar shielding the sisters with dramatic flair. A Dravex tech snorted a rare burst of humor from their kind. Your unity is quite literal, it seems. Laughter rippled awkwardly through the deck, Zorathian's blushing blue, while Jax felt heat flood his face. Hey, if fighting shadows requires group hugs, I'm game, he quipped, diffusing the embarrassment with a wink at the sisters, who exchanged surprised glances before joining the chuckles. But the humor was short-lived. Scouts reported Void Eater manifestations breaching the atmosphere, tendrils coiling around orbital stations, siphoning energy in eerie silence. Alarms blared, heightening the drama to a fever pitch as the deck scrambled. Jax gripped the key tighter, its power surging through him like a double-edged blade, empowering yet whispering temptations of the void's hunger. Lyra pulled him aside amid the frenzy, her body close in a corridor alcove, curves pressing against him in a bid for privacy. This heritage, it doesn't change us, she murmured, her lips brushing his ear. But awkwardness crept in when Nara joined them unannounced, sandwiching Jax between the sisters. No, it makes us stronger, Nara added, her hand sliding to his waist, creating a triad embrace that was intimate yet comically timed as a warrior rounded the corner, freezing in surprise. Council in session? The warrior stammered, ears flattening. Jax burst out laughing, the sound relieving the tension. Something like that. Carry on, world-ending stuff here. The moment passed, but it underscored the escalating drama, their bond, once a private flame, now intertwined with cosmic stakes, drawing awkward scrutiny from allies. Back on deck, plans solidified a daring insertion into the rift's heart, with Jax as the conduit, Lyra and Nara amplifying through their ritual link, Dravex providing void-resistant shields. As the lead ship launched, engines roaring like defiant beasts, Jax strapped into the command seat, the sisters at flanking consoles, their elegant profiles set in determination. The awkwardness lingered in stolen glances, Nara's teasing smile, Lyra's protective gaze blending with humor, when Jax's cybernetics glitched again, broadcasting a silly Earth tune over comms. Oops, wrong channel. That's my pump-up playlist, he said, earning groans and laughs that humanized the dire mission. The rift loomed on viewscreens, a swirling abyss that distorted stars into mocking grins, heightening the drama as the ship plunged in. Reality warped inside, colors inverting, gravity flipping in nauseating waves. Jax activated the key, its energy flooding him, but the void's whispers grew to roars, visions of his ancestors' hubris, labs crumbling under shadow onslaughts. Fight it, Lyra urged over the link, her voice a lifeline, while Nara channeled essence boosters, her bioluminescence flaring through the bond. Awkwardness struck comically when a void tendril mimicked human forms, projecting illusory miners digging into the ship's hull. Great, my old job's haunting me, Jax quipped, firing countermeasures that shattered the illusions in bursts of light. The sisters laughed despite the peril, their unity turning fear into fuel. Deeper in, the heart of the rift pulsed a nexus of devoured essences, where eater forms coalesced into writhing masses. Drama peaked as Jax commanded them, his air status allowing influence, but resistance built, tendrils lashing out to ensnare the ship. Lyra piloted evasive maneuvers, her graceful hands dancing over controls, while Nara hacked auxiliary systems with Dravex tech. An awkward tumble sent them sprawling, Jax landing atop the sisters in a heap of limbs and laughter amid alarms. Not the time for a pile-up, Nara joked, but they rose as one, bond unbreakable. Jax channeled fully, sealing fractures with bursts of light, but a massive eater core emerged, its form shifting to mimic his face, distorted, hungry. Redeem or join, it hissed in his mind. The confrontation escalated, Jax wrestling control, sweat pouring as the void tempted with power. Lyra and Nara poured their essence through the link, bodies glowing in sync, curves outlined in radiant energy that was both beautiful and intense. Humor flashed when Jax retorted mentally, "Sorry, I've got plans, dinner with two princesses beats eternal hunger." The quip bolstered him, and with a final surge, he commanded the core to collapse, sealing the rift in an implosion that shook the ship. Victory cheers erupted over comms, but exhaustion hit hard, the trio collapsing in their seats, hands clasped. Back on Zorathia, celebrations brewed, but drama lingered, more rifts awaited, and Jax's role as heir drew awkward propositions from Dravex for further alliances, perhaps even hybrid unions. In a private toast, Jax raised a glowing fruit drink. To awkward family trees and saving the galaxy one embarrassing revelation at a time. The sisters clinked, laughter mingling with lingering touches, their bond deeper amid the stars' watchful gaze. Yet shadows stirred afar, whispers of unsealed rifts, hinting at greater dramas. With humor as their shield and love as their weapon, they faced it head-on, a human miner and his alien royals rewriting fate. As the celebrations in the Citadel stretched into the Zorathian night, with glowing fruits passed around like tokens of hard-won peace, and warriors sharing tales of the rifts sealing in voices laced with awe, Jax found himself drawn away from the revelry by a quiet pull from Lyra and Nara. The twin moons hung low, casting a silver veil over the crystalline spires, and the air hummed with the distant songs of alien creatures emerging from hiding now that the shadows had retreated. Jax walked between the sisters, their hands in his, forming that familiar triad, a bond that had evolved from desperate alliance to something profound, unbreakable. The drama of the day lingered in his bones, the void's hungry whispers, still echoing faintly in his mind, but with each step toward the royal gardens, it faded, replaced by a warmth that felt like home in this alien world. The gardens were a sanctuary of bioluminescent blooms that unfurled under moonlight, petals shimmering in hues of violet and gold, much like the eyes of the women beside him. Lyra led them to a secluded pavilion, its vines weaving overhead like a living canopy, and they settled on soft cushions that molded to their forms. Nara poured from a decanter of starry elixir, a drink that sparkled on the tongue and eased the soul, handing glasses to each with a smile that held no trace of the earlier awkwardness, only contentment. To rewriting fates, she toasted, her voice a gentle melody, clinking her glass against theirs. Jax sipped, the liquid warming him from within, and met their gazes, feeling the weight of their journey settle into a peaceful resolution. And to the unlikely heroes who make it possible, he added, his rough earth accent softened by emotion, drawing soft laughs from them both. In the quiet that followed, as the elixir worked its subtle magic, conversations flowed like the garden's hidden streams, reflections on the battles fought, the surprises uncovered, and the love that had blossomed amid chaos. Lyra leaned against him, her white hair spilling over his shoulder, her curvaceous form a comforting presence that spoke of trust earned through fire. "When you first dove into that gunfire," she murmured, tracing a finger along his cybernetic arm, "I saw a stranger's folly. Now, I see the man who saved not just a child, but our world and my heart." Her words carried the depth of Zorathian honor, but laced with a vulnerability that made Jax's chest tighten. Nara, curled on his other side, nodded, her pointed ears twitching with affection as she rested her head on his lap. "And mine." The void's heir turned guardian of light. Who could have imagined? There was no jealousy in her tone, only harmony, the rituals bond having woven their affections into a tapestry where each thread strengthened the whole. Jax set his glass aside, pulling them closer, marveling at how a miner's life of dust and drills had led to this, entwined with two alien princesses under foreign stars. The drama of his heritage, once a shattering twist, now felt like a chapter closed. The key, safely stored in the Citadel's vaults, no longer whispered temptations, its power harnessed for protection rather than destruction. "I came here for minerals," he said with a chuckle, injecting that human humor that had lightened so many dark moments, "but I found treasures I didn't know existed. You too, you're my galaxy now." They shared a kiss then, first Lyra's lips meeting his in a tender press that spoke of passion's fire-banked but ever-ready, then Nara's, playful yet deep, sealing the triad in a moment of pure connection. Their bodies aligned naturally, gowns slipping in the warm night air, but this time, the intimacy was unhurried, a celebration rather than a ritual, hands exploring familiar paths, breaths mingling in sighs that echoed the garden's serene symphony. As passions rose and crested under the moon's watchful gaze, leaving them breathless and entwined in the pavilion's embrace, the conversation turned to the future, a good ending not as a finale, but as a new beginning. The alliance with the Dravex held firm, their fleets patrolling the outer rims to monitor unsealed rifts, sharing knowledge that blended technologies into shields against any lingering shadows. Zorathia thrived, its people honoring Jax as the blood brother who bridged worlds, his human ingenuity inspiring innovations that turned ancient relics into tools for peace. Lyra spoke of rebuilding the Citadel's archives, incorporating Earth's wild histories to enrich their lore, while Nara dreamed of explorations beyond their system, the three of them charting stars together. "No more invasions," she said, her voice sleepy with satisfaction, "just discoveries. With you leading the way." Jax held them through the night, watching the moons set and the dual suns rise, painting the gardens in golden light. The awkward situations of before, the sibling dynamics, the cultural clashes, the humorous glitches faded into fond memories, lessons that had fortified their love. He thought of Earth Colony 9, a distant speck now, and felt no pull to return. His home was here, in the arms of these ethereal women whose grace had tamed his rugged spirit. HFY wasn't just about humanity's triumphs over odds. It was about the connections forged in the stars, where one man's leap into danger sparked alliances that illuminated the dark. As days turned to cycles, Jax integrated fully into Zorathian life, his cybernetics enhanced with their tech to aid in planetary defenses and explorations. He trained young warriors in human tactics, blending brute force with elegance, while Lyra and Nara ruled with wisdom tempered by his grounded perspective. Children played in the canyons once scarred by battle, their laughter a testament to peace, and tales of the human who commanded the void became legends whispered around glowing hearths. Occasional whispers from afar, hints of distant rifts, kept them vigilant, but together they faced them, turning potential dramas into shared adventures. In quiet evenings, the triad would retreat to the pavilion, elixir in hand, recounting their story with humor and affection. "Remember when I thought tentacles were the worst part?" Jax would joke, earning playful swats from the sisters. Their love deepened, a blend of passion, respect, and joy that defied species boundaries, conversations flowing into nights of tender exploration, bodies and souls aligned in perfect harmony. Lyra's strength, Nara's curiosity, and Jax's grit formed a union that inspired their people, proving that true heroism lay not in solitary feats, but in the bonds that endured. Years later, as Jax stood on the same balcony overlooking a thriving Zorathia, Lyra and Nara at his sides, a child their child, a beautiful hybrid with pointed ears and human resilience tugged at his hand. "Tell me the story again, father," the little one pleaded, eyes wide with wonder. Jax smiled, pulling the family close. "It started with a miner and a leap into gunfire," he began, his voice warm with memory. And as he wove the tale, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, a galaxy at peace, rewritten by love's unyielding light. In that moment, Jax knew the ending was good, not because the shadows were gone forever, but because they had each other to face whatever came next. Humanity's spirit, had found its place among the stars, in the hearts of those who dared to love beyond worlds.